We are all experiencing so much stress these days. The stress caused by COVID-19 has been intense, and we feel it both in our work lives and our home lives. My name is Kay Jankowski, and I'm a psychologist who has spent my career treating people with trauma, trying to improve care for people with trauma-related problems, and training diverse workforces in trauma-informed care. My interest in creating these videos comes from recognizing how pervasive stress is for so many of us, and my belief in the stress first aid model as a way to help us improve our health and well-being by better understanding and reducing the negative effects of stress.
My name's Yvonne Rotenberg, and I'm a clinical psychologist in the Department of Psychiatry at Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center. The stress first aid model that we'll be talking about is something that I have found very beneficial in my own life, and I hope that there are some things that you take away from these videos that are helpful to you too.
We believe that we can help. Through this set of brief videos, we can help you feel more in control of how stress affects you. In this way, we can help you become more resilient, even in the face of all the uncertainty and hardship we are facing right now. These videos talk about something called stress first aid, which is a model or framework to improve recovery from stress reactions. The model originally was developed for the military, which is an extremely high-stress workforce. It's now being modified for healthcare workforces all over the country. There are many similarities across high-stress work settings, and researchers have found that taking a proactive approach to managing stress for employees in these kinds of settings is very helpful for keeping employees as healthy as possible and preventing more serious problems that sometimes can develop due to stress. There are two videos in this series. The first describes common effects of stress and things that affect our stress reactions, including our values and beliefs that can inadvertently increase our reactions to stress. It also describes the first aid model, which provides a very helpful framework for understanding where our own responses fall along a continuum and when we need to take action to increase our resilience and well-being. The second video discusses the 7 elements or actions associated with the stress first aid model that have been linked to better functioning after stress and adversity across a number of settings.
Stress can be experienced many different ways. For some, stress shows up as anxiety, where you might be more nervous and on edge in general, or more specifically about your health or the health and well-being of others. You may be worried about your finances and how you're going to pay your bills if your work hours were reduced or a family member lost their employment. You may be anxious about the uncertainty of the future. Others experience stress more as a feeling of helplessness, where you don't know what to do or feel like nothing you do is enough. You may notice that you feel more exhausted and overwhelmed than usual, especially if you're adjusting to lots of changes at work and at home. When we feel stressed and overwhelmed, we can start doubting ourselves and question our ability to cope. Things can feel out of control. You may be feeling loss, either grieving a loved one who died during this time, due to COVID-19 or not, and maybe even that you weren't able to honor and mourn that person how you typically would. Many of us have canceled vacations and celebrations due to this pandemic, and there's a natural sadness and loss that comes along with that. You may be feeling isolated and sad because you can't see your family and friends or interact with them the way you want to. For some people, stress shows up more as anger, and you may notice that you're more irritable right now and that small things can set you off. And finally, you may notice that you've been struggling with feelings of guilt because you aren't doing as much as you used to, or because you believe you aren't handling the situation as well as you should. All of these experiences of stress are normal and understandable. We are all affected by stress in some way. One thing that can make a stressful experience more challenging to get through can be our own values and ideals. Our values and ideals give us strength and purpose to persevere through periods of hardship. However, they can also create challenges for us and can make us more vulnerable to feeling distressed. If we don't adjust our expectations to match the circumstances we are in, we can end up struggling and engaging in some ineffective behaviors. For example, a value such as selflessness will encourage a person to put others' needs above their own, thereby sometimes neglecting their own needs. This can make a person less likely to care for themselves as needed, and less likely to seek help if they need it. A value such as loyalty will help you commit to seeing things through. But if you don't have the same reserves as you typically do, or your responsibilities have changed, then this can lead to feelings of guilt or anger. You may be the type of person that believes that you get through hard times by keeping your head down and plowing through. But this might also lead you to ignore internal signals that you're struggling. Having strong beliefs about what is right or wrong can serve as an internal compass, but it can also lead to feelings of anger or betrayal when you can't follow your compass due to circumstances outside of your control, or if you perceive others as behaving in ways that are inconsistent with your moral code. Finally, it may be important to you to be an excellent worker and to do things to the best of your abilities. However, most people don't do their best when they're under a great deal of stress. If you can't adjust your expectations for your performance during a period of high stress, such as now, that can lead to feelings of shame and guilt. So how can you tell when your values and ideals are adding to your stress? You may find yourself saying things like, "I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm not even tired. It would be selfish to take a break." Or, "Only I can do this." As a consequence of this type of self-talk, you might then engage in some unhelpful behaviors, like working too long by yourself without checking in with others, avoiding breaks even though you're really tired, keeping your feelings to yourself so that you lose out on support you could be getting from others, or only relying on alcohol or other substances to help you relax.
Stress First Aid is a model of self-care and peer support that includes 7 different actions that help to identify and address signs of stress in yourself and others in an ongoing way. The model has many benefits. It can, 1, help improve one's ability to cope with stress reactions. 2, help identify stress reactions early to prevent more severe problems from developing. 3, foster longevity on the job by reducing the impact of stress. And 4, it can reduce the stigma around having stress reactions that is all too common. In many workplace cultures, including healthcare, there can be a lot of shame and stigma around showing reactions to stress. People can also hold personal beliefs that they need to be strong and cannot show any response to stress at any time, no matter how severe the stressor or for how long one endures stress. Everyone will react when faced with severe or extended enough stress, and many different factors affect how people will respond to any given stressor. No 2 people will react exactly the same way. There are 4 zones: green, or what we call ready, yellow, or reacting, orange, or injured, and red, or ill. The green zone is the zone of optimal functioning. This is when we are on our A game. We feel at our best. That is, at ease, in control, balanced, calm, steady. When we are in the yellow zone, we're feeling some effects of stress. Our symptoms might include feeling anxious or worried, having difficulty sleeping, feeling sad about loss we've experienced, or feeling irritable. But the symptoms are usually transient, or the distress feels manageable. In the orange or injured zone, we feel more severe or persistent distress. We feel a loss of control, and our symptoms are more pronounced and impairing. Our stress symptoms are likely to negatively affect our ability to perform our job, or interfere in our ability to parent, or significantly affect our relationships. When we find ourselves in the orange zone, we definitely need to take steps to address our stress reactions in order to move towards the yellow and even green zones. If not, we will experience a great deal of distress and not perform well in our roles at work or at home. Finally, the red or ill zone is the zone of greatest distress and impairment. When we find ourselves in the red zone, we are definitely not able to perform well across our different roles. In the red zone, we would likely be diagnosed with a psychiatric condition such as post-traumatic stress disorder, or major depressive disorder, an anxiety disorder, or a substance use disorder, for example. In the red zone, it's usually a sign that we will need professional help, and it's recommended that she reach out to a mental health professional for care. Remember that everyone will react when faced with severe or extended enough stress, and the way people respond is related to many different factors. While these zones are distinct, we are also moving back and forth across these zones on a fairly regular basis. Most of us move in and out of the green, yellow, and even orange zones on a fairly regular basis, especially during times of increased stress. In fact, during a very stressful time, we can move back and forth within each of these zones extremely rapidly, like even within a day or a week. So you might find yourself shifting in and out of different zones along the continuum, depending on things such as your mood, how tired you are, upsetting things that have happened to you, such as getting into a fight with your partner, or feeling upset about an interaction with a coworker or your supervisor, or dealing with the uncertainties that this pandemic has brought. There are 4 types of stressors that tend to cause people to move into the orange and red zones. These are life threat or trauma, life-threatening situations. So this type of injury can include experiencing a near miss or close call, or witnessing or hearing about the life-threatening experiences of others. Loss. So grief due to the loss of family members, close coworkers, leaders, people we feel responsible for, or other cared for individuals. This can also include loss of role, functioning, relationships, and values. In these times, it can also include loss of one's routine and loss of one's hopes for the future, loss of seeing loved ones at the current time. Inner conflict. A sense of inner turmoil due to conflict between our moral, ethical beliefs and current experiences, or situations that just don't sit well with our values. Inner conflict can result from acting outside of internal self-imposed morals or values, or the perception of contributing to or being unable to prevent harm to others. When our thoughts are dominated by words such as could've, should've, ought to have, why me, or if only, it can indicate inner conflict. Wear and tear. The accumulation of stress over time without sufficient rest and recovery. Wear and tear is the result of fatigue and accumulation of prolonged stress, especially in situations where there's a lack of control or without sufficient sleep, rest, or restoration. The next video will describe how to grow the green. While it can be hard to navigate when we find ourselves in the orange or red zones, do not despair. There are many very helpful things we can do to grow the green or care for ourselves. The Stress First Aid model includes 7 different categories of actions that can help us counteract the negative effects of stress, and we will explain each one in detail in the next video.